Hey guys, today I'm here with Michael Topolinski. He's a partner and head of sales with InteRo Property Developments. He's going to talk to us about their newest venture, Metawealth. Really excited to learn a little bit more about this. Michael, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Dion. It's
Cool.
it's a pleasure to chat about real estate. It's always fun to talk about real estate. It's uh, it's you know, it's interesting, especially nowadays with how things are going in the global market and whatnot, and some of the pressures. So during these times, we learn a lot for sure. So
Definitely,
it's nice to talk about it.
for sure.
Talk about with you today.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be great. Especially with Metawealth, like it really plays into what's going on in the world. So, um,
Yeah, very so.
yeah. Why don't we start with you telling us a bit about tokenization and what that looks like?
Yeah, so tokenization is a big term that's going on right now in the real estate industry globally. If you follow some of the larger investment firms and whatnot, you probably have seen or will see more information about tokenization come about. But basically, the idea of tokenization at a high level is being able to take a real estate asset, either an individual asset or a portfolio of assets, and break these assets into fractions that people can invest and purchase.
Mhm.
Um,
And fractions would
uh,
be something like a share, right?
Kind of, yeah. To keep it in simplistic terms, yeah,
Yeah.
it's essentially a share or a portion of that asset. But the big thing in tokenization as well, beyond this simple concept of how it works, is it's typically backed by blockchain technology. So basically, it's taking these real estate assets, creating fractions of them, offering them through different avenues, one of which is Metawealth, an application that we're going to talk about, and having a lot of the assets in control and the funds and things like that monitored and managed through different smart contracts and basically put on a ledger, the blockchain ledger, in a very transparent way so that people can always keep track of the transactions, be knowledgeable of how that's working. But then also using this technology and the smart contracts, there's a lot of control that's given to these investors as well, which we'll go more in depth about later on as I discuss Metawealth.
Cool.
But basically, the big idea is that you're taking these real estate assets, and you're basically making fractions or shares or portions, so that they're more accessible to people. There's a lot of reasons why the tokenization is a big concept, and why it's being talked about by the largest investment firms such as BlackRock or Goldman Sachs or any of these significant large players, that I'd love to discuss as well and explain.
Sure. Awesome. Well, quickly, let's go back to you mentioned smart contracts. Why is that important? You mentioned it a few times. You should explain that so people uh,
Yeah, so
know the savings.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, smart contracts have different mandates, and different controls surrounding them. And they automate a lot of the processes in terms of dividing funds, and different voting rights, and things like that for different assets. But they basically help manage the process, make the process faster, and they also follow the mandates that particular investors or investments want to offer investors overall.
Awesome. And it
There
makes
are
it transparent as well, right? Like it does the
Yeah,
smart contract play into the transparency or
yeah. It does, it does in two main ways. The first way is that it's connected to the blockchain ledger, where you can see all the transactions. But the second main way is that it basically takes a lot of the control out of individuals' hands, in terms of how these operations work. And they make it simpler by using technology and using by machine learning and machines basically to run these operations, which gives a higher level of transparency, or at least a higher level a lesser level, sorry, of human error surrounding some of these operations.
awesome. I love it. Did you want to talk a little bit about the differences in the different markets and why this is
Yeah.
an important
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. In terms of getting back to tokenization and why it's a big opportunity right now, it really connects with the fact that a lot of the global markets, at least in a lot of the developed markets, there's an affordability crisis going on in a lot of these different areas. If you follow Canadian politicians, follow the news, I'm sure many people have seen a lot of the different content and news coming out regarding housing prices for the past few years. And especially in Toronto, if you basically have read the newspaper in the past 10 years, you've heard about this. But basically, there's an affordability crisis going on in a lot of these developed markets, which is basically making it impossible for younger generations and new investors to get into these opportunities and making them inaccessible, due to the fact that it's a lot more difficult to get the down payment together, to get the funds together to get into these investments. And through tokenization, part of the goal at least, is to alleviate this problem, or to lessen this problem, and by making real estate investments more accessible to people.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
the
same
other
for larger assets too, right? Like they can access like.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that's the other part of it too, is that when I'm talking about real estate or housing prices, we're talking about residential real estate, and that's typically the most accessible asset class in real estate today for the everyday investor or everyday home buyer. But the other asset classes, such as offices, retail, logistics, things like this, are certainly not accessible by most investors today and most individuals today. And through this idea of tokenization, through this type of technology, these type of asset classes will become accessible to more people, which is another one of the big benefits of tokenization and this idea in general. And beyond that, the goal of Metawealth, which we'll go in more in depth, but long term, on the side of accessibility and things like this, we want to make it, or Metawealth wants to make it, so that global opportunities will become accessible. So right now, if you're from Toronto or you're from Romania, where I'm at, it's very difficult to become an investor in a market that's outside of your country, or outside of your region, or within the relative vicinity of where you live.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty difficult for you today, Dion, to buy an apartment in Romania. At least the process would take, quite a few steps and quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
Through this sort of tokenization idea, and through these different tech companies that will be providing different opportunities in this, I think the long-term goal generally is to provide global opportunities, so that the person that's sitting in Toronto or the person that's sitting in Bucharest can now invest in a property that's in the other part of the world, or another region of the world, which is a big part of it, and something that makes it extremely exciting for the future, with this type of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to go there and do all the research. Meet with
Exactly.
and like it's on your phone. All the research is there, which is nice.
Exactly. I mean, you can, depending on the price that it's put on the fractions, or of the shares. I mean, you can simply be sitting at lunch with some friends, looking at your phone, doing a little bit of research, looking at some opportunities, and being able to buy a part of that opportunity, which is extremely exciting for the global market in general. And I think that's a big part of why it's a huge term, and why it's being viewed as a big part of the next generation within real estate and transactions as a whole. The other part of this too, in terms of getting into other markets and being able to access other markets in the world, is first off, the accessibility is a big part. So being able to invest in these other markets for sure.
Definitely.
But also as an investor, you can learn more about what foreign investment looks like and what indicators and what to really look for in foreign markets that may give higher returns.
Mhm.
And in terms of the accessibility and the affordability crisis side of things, the thing that we've really followed a lot and we're preparing for last year was some of the consequences of the economic pressures that came through inflation primarily and through rising interest rates. We're expecting that in Romania, and we're kind of waiting for that. But the thing that we saw.
You haven't seen that yet?
No, no. So we haven't seen it so much. Definitely not the same as a lot of these other developed markets. In general, when you look at Bucharest specifically, the capital of Romania, last year performed extremely well in terms of transactions and in terms of price. Price on average actually increased slightly year over year, which is great. But the big part of that is the way that the market works, and also part of the benefit of being able to learn about other markets is in Romania, it's not a credit heavy market. So this isn't a market where the loan to values are out of whack with companies, or the financing options for everyday buyers are extremely extensive, or at least provide extremely high leverage. Normally with high costs associated. So the market here didn't see a lot of that pressure. Additionally, in developing markets, or at least what we've seen in Romania, is due to the lack of credit and other factors. There's a lot of factors in why markets are the way they are, but this being one of the points. The affordability crisis hasn't really hit Romania or Bucharest up until this point. And the way that we see that is based off of one statistic that we follow really heavily, which is how many years of the average annual salary is the average price of a residential unit in a specific market.
Okay.
And yeah, and in Bucharest, what we've seen right now is that the prices are typically about 10 times the average annual salary on average. They were about 8 times a few years ago, so the market has increased in price, but still 10 times is kind of where it's at now. But when you look at some of the other more developed markets like Toronto or a London, London's a different case because London is having a lot of problems. But when you look at those type of markets, you're looking at prices that are typically 30 times the average annual income, 25 to 30 times the average annual income, which unfortunately isn't affordable for a lot of people, and is why those markets are heavily reliant on credit and leverage and debt and things like that.
They have to be, right?
Yeah, they have. I mean, for the everyday buyer, for sure. I mean, if you look in Toronto or one of these other developed markets right now, what I've seen in the past is that the transactions are about less than 1% are cash transactions, more meaning the remaining 99 point whatever percent are credit based, or at least have some kind of mortgage attached to them. In Romania, we don't have that. It's a pretty cash heavy market, so there's a lot of room for growth in these types of opportunities, and tokenization and apps like Metawealth and companies that provide these opportunities are providing investors globally an option to look into and to learn about and to see whether that would fit into their investment model.
That's fair. Yeah. Do you think do you see like significantly better cap rates and yields in the developing markets?
Yeah, so what at least in terms of returns, the returns in Romania where we've invested so far, outside of North America, are quite high. So yield rates, or the percentage of annual income earned compared to the purchase price of that asset are quite high. On average, not on average, but I would say it's very possible to find returns between 7 to 9% gross yield on a residential unit. In office, it's somewhere between 6.5 to 8% on an office unit. And those returns are quite a bit higher than what you'll see in a Toronto, for example, where residential yields are closer to the 2% range. And also these assets are typically heavily leveraged. So there's different risk with that as well, which it could be a whole conversation itself. But yeah, I mean, getting access to global markets is only a benefit. It can kind of teach you a lot of different things about what's going on in different parts of the world. Obviously, give accessibility to different investment opportunities. And from what we've seen, yeah, I mean, developed markets can provide these high returns. And from our perspective, you know, the thing that around the risk of the investment. Developed markets are viewed as typically a little bit riskier based off different factors. But from my personal vantage point, I'd be a little bit more hesitant to be heavily invested in a market where it's leveraged to an incredible level, because you don't know how much of that pricing is artificial or whether it'll be sustained, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, is the asset worth that when the shit hits
Yeah.
the fan, so to
I
speak?
mean, yeah. I mean, you and I, we've had a friendship for quite some time now. And we're talking, you know, a couple of days ago. But the thing that you mentioned to me about like the stack credit, where home
Building
buyers,
capital stacks. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, where the home buyers have the option to go get, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth mortgages on their properties and have their property completely financed.
That's harder on, it's harder on the, just to clarify, it is a little harder on the residential side, but that happens a lot on large assets. But continue, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, those concepts, those are concepts that are definitely not the norm here in Romania.
Mhm.
Everyone kind of has to put a little bit more skin in the game, whether you're a company that has to put in a higher percentage because the loan to value isn't as high as some of the other markets, or you're the home buyer that's has to put the down payment down. I mean, 100% leverage is something that's kind of a little bit crazy to me, and probably be a little bit crazy to the market that we have here in
Oh, I
general.
have
Yeah,
a client that's over 150% leveraged on a house right
yeah,
now. He's flipping
yeah.
it. Like the lender lent him more than he paid for the house.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like in these types of situations and markets like this, it's easy to be a winner when the market's going well and also look like a genius. I mean, you can look like and your returns can look amazing if the market's going well. But
Yeah,
in times of any turmoil, like a situation that we're facing now, that's when you really find out what's going on and who has a strong position within their investments, and also which markets are a little stronger and more stable with the way they operate.
definitely.
Which Yeah, which is why I mean in Bucharest we didn't see that volatility that we're reading about in other parts of the world.
Definitely. So like what are the factors and indicators you're using when you're looking for potential foreign markets to invest in?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. I mean, I'm gonna go through the ones that I think are the most important for me. Because again, this is a topic that can be talked about for a long time. But the first one I would definitely say are some of the macroeconomic indicators and performances of that country. GDP growth is probably the biggest in general. Then I'd go into more of the market specific stuff. So again, looking into the credit, the way things work with the credit system. Is it a market that's heavily leveraged? Is it a market that has an opportunity to growth because it isn't leveraged? Things like that. I would definitely look into some of the political aspects, and that actually is quite a big part because politicians can quickly change regulations and ultimately impact the market heavily. I mean, look at Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at Canada, for instance, with some of the new regulations they have on foreign investment. I'm sure that they'll have an impact on the market, probably in the relative next few years. So I would definitely look into some of the political factors. And then I would definitely the one other thing that I would use as well is I would look at the obviously the price history and transaction history and stuff like that. But what I like to do personally is I do like to look at the pricing today versus the price of real estate before 2008, because 2008 was a massive correction. Not just correction, it was obviously a recession, but the global market in real estate had a massive change in price, essentially. So I like to look at the prices from before that time, which were obviously super heavily leveraged times, which we all know through the banks and how it worked out for some of them, compared to the price today, for sure. For instance, when I look at Romania and Bucharest specifically, the prices that we have today are still not at the same price level as 2008. And part of the reason for that, a big part of it, is because of the credit system and some of the new regulations that they put in place after that crash. Before 2008, it was a little bit more of the Wild West in Romania. Similar, maybe even more of the Wild West, to be honest, than North America. But following 2008, there was a lot of regulations put in place, so getting access to credit is a lot more difficult today. So I would definitely look at the prices comparative from before 2008 to now. Yeah, and
to touch on that, do you think that the way that the credit has changed is like a cultural thing, like they're less receptive to credit, or is that due to regulation? It's just harder to access it.
It's both. It's both. So a personal example that I can give is I arrived in Romania 4 years ago to join the business here. And for me, my goal was to get access to credit relatively quickly within the first year through my company, which, I mean, part of that ideology came through coming from Toronto, where everybody gets a mortgage. So that's kind of the way I still had the same kind of mindset at the time. But before 2008, it was super easy for a company to get access to credit. But now it's much more difficult for a company to get access to credit for real estate transactions. And that's like one of the examples of the new regulations that they have. Okay. But also the banks are a little bit, I'd say, are more risk adverse in terms of the LTV, loan to value, and stuff like that. So there's definitely been an impact from the regulation side. And then culturally, the thing that's great about the market here in Romania is that people kind of have the cultural mindset that they want to be owners and real owners of their properties. And that they view that, you know, when you get credit from a bank, you don't actually own it until you pay the bank all their money. So they have that mindset, and the combination of both has kind of affected the credit system in general. At the same time, because these building blocks are there and this is how things operate now, it does leave a lot of potential for growth for the future, which I think will happen. I think that credit will become a larger part of the ecosystem in the future. But it's going to be a more natural progression. It won't be, it likely won't be a massive explosion of access to credit in a short period of time, which I think is a more stable way to grow the market from that perspective.
Definitely, it won't be another 2008. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I mean, the way that everything's kind of shaping out now, and even the performance during this past year, where economic pressures were massive on the side of the constructors, with construction prices going up because of supply chain problems, obviously leading to inflation, increase in interest rates. I mean, the market performed really well against those pressures. honestly kind of not expectedly, from at least from our perspective at InteRo. We were expecting a tougher period of time. But I think it's a good example of some of that stability.
Okay, awesome. And what are there any other markets you see opportunity in other than Romania that you could
Yeah, I mean, we're mainly focused on Eastern Europe for sure. Eastern Europe a lot. But I mean, there's definitely opportunities in like South America, for sure. We're recently traveling there. I've talked to a few people out there about some opportunities, mainly to actually talk about Metawealth and how it could possibly play as a market into that. But yeah, there are other opportunities. The biggest thing is just looking into the information as much as possible. And fortunately, I think there's going to be a little bit more, it'll be a little bit easier to access this information as this concept of tokenization of providing opportunities on a global scale through these different companies progresses
Okay,
overall.
awesome.
Yeah, actually, one big one that I do want to say though, just I apologize for kind of cutting you off there for a second. But obviously a big opportunity in the future, once things are stable in the region, will be in Ukraine. Ukraine is going to be a massive opportunity. There's going to be obviously a lot of redevelopment and construction that needs to happen there. And it's a country that was already before the conflict and the war with Russia had a lot of promise. So once things stabilize there, and the Russian the threat of Russia and whatnot is non-existent for them, it's going to be a very exciting market.
That's fair. Do you think you guys will look for opportunities?
It's definitely one that we're interested in for the
Cool.
future, for sure.
Very cool. So, did you want to talk about Metawealth now? Like what Metawealth is and
Yeah, definitely. So I've kind of said the word a few times now, but Metawealth is a company that has a big mission statement and goal, which is possible through this technology, through the idea of tokenization. But the big mission is to democratize real estate investing on a global scale. Again, giving accessibility, all these different types of things. The company was founded by three guys. Two of them are from Toronto. One of them is ex big investment firm, and then another guy used to work at Wealthsimple within the development department there. The third founder is my father, who's bringing the real estate side and the business side, business operation side to the equation. And then we also have a VP in the company that's a minority shareholder as well, that is focused on the acquisition side and opportunity side of the business. Yeah, so that's kind of the big goal, and also who the founders are. The company has developed an application that's providing these different tokenized opportunities through the application. Right now, there is an active real estate opportunity that can be invested in, which is 30 different apartments that were developed through our portfolio at InteRo Property Development, which are currently rented. And then there's other investment opportunities as well, such as different NFTs, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and all that type of stuff. But it's an application that you can download, you can use, and you can start to invest in real estate portfolios for a minimum price of 100 euros per share. And then for NFTs, a minimum price of 50 euros per share. So it's an application. It's the first application of its kind that's accessible today. Right now, it can be downloaded in the Google Play Store on Android, and it's going to be accessible on Apple in the short next period. Literally any day now, we're expecting to be on Apple. So it's an application in essentially that provides
Yeah.
this different opportunity.
It's like a setup as a marketplace, right? So you can buy and sell within the
Yeah,
application.
yeah. I'm actually gonna connect my phone so that I
Okay.
can share my screen and take you guys through the application as well,
Yeah.
so that you can see how it all looks. Can you see my screen?
I can. Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, going into what Metawealth is about, I'm going to show you obviously the application and how some of those things work and kind of explain it as I go. But as I mentioned, the idea is to provide these tokenized assets and investments through this application for global users to have access to. There's a lot of different benefits that come with this, and why someone would want to use a platform like this. First, obviously, is accessibility to different markets, to different investment opportunities, just more options for you to consider. The second thing for this application that's super beneficial is obviously the price, and the fact that you can become an investor for as little as 100 euros per token, or per fraction of the investment. But also um, beyond that, the other big benefit of Metawealth application and also this concept in general is the transparency and control that's given to the investors, as we mentioned. The thing that Metawealth wanted to do, that was super important and a big part of the mission and part of the way that they grew the application and built it, is they wanted to basically provide an option for people to invest and have safety in those investments, through putting these different real estate assets, so these different apartments, into a separate company that Metawealth does not manage, does not control, which is called SPV, special purpose vehicle company, for those assets. And as you buy fractions of those investments, you're buying fractions of that company that's controlling these assets. And the reason why that's giving you more transparency and control is the fact that the money that you invest into these different investments that are offered on Metawealth does not go directly into the accounts of Metawealth, but rather that specific company. And the actual management of the company is done by two ways. It's done by one, a board of a trustee legal entity that has a certain mandate with the company on how it's supposed to operate and how it's supposed to manage the company and take direction based off different voting rights and things like that of the investors. And then also managed through the smart contract that we discussed earlier, which controls the actual disbursement of income and the funds. So with that, you know that when you're putting your money into one of these investments in Metawealth, it's not going into the guy who's built Metawealth or the founder who built Metawealth's bank account within their own company. It's with a separate company, which gives a lot more of the control and transparency to the investor, especially compared to other options such as a REIT or something like that. Additionally, with the control side, the investors through this application are able to vote on different aspects of the assets and different things to do with the assets. The most important is, when do you sell the asset? So the assets, the investors would, if they had an intention to vote, they'd basically call the vote, which would take place through the application, and then send directive to the smart contract and to the trustees of the business. And if a majority of the people voted that they want to sell the assets, then that directive would then be sent, it would be approved, and the trustees would then be mandated to offer these properties on the real market, for sale.
Okay.
Overall.
Awesome.
So you get a lot more control. You also get the transparency because the funds are going into this SPV company, not to the Metawealth specific bank accounts. That's the same also for the rental income. So these investments, the thing that I haven't gone into yet is that these investments in real estate that Metawealth are providing are both appreciation and yield generating. And what appreciation means is obviously the banking on the increase in the value of the property based off the market performance, which is normally how markets perform, other than years of different economic pressures or recessions or corrections or things like that, which happen every couple years as a cycle. But then also the yield side is from the rent. So these assets and these investment opportunities are rent generating, which means that you as an investor will get the benefit of both waiting for the price to go up for the value of the property, but also you'll have a monthly dividend, which is paid quarterly through the application, based off the rent. So basically, Metawealth offers these opportunities, and it's offered on the application right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, and in terms of the application itself, there's other goals. Another big goal that's a big part of the business, which is giving educational resources and access to information, which is kind of why I touched on that with tokenization in general, is access to information to investors. So we want to make it easier, or Metawealth wants to make it easier for investors to get access to this information and have centralized a lot of different pieces of information. So the first place that you can get access to some information in the Metawealth app is on these different squares that are at the top of the screen. These are all, they act like stories. In Metawealth, they refer to them as snacks. And basically, as you click on the different snacks, in this case, I clicked on dictionary, it'll go through some of the different basic terminologies surrounding the investments. For instance,
like stories, or are these permanent? Like you can always go through and.
These are stories. These are stories. Some of them will stay permanent. Okay. But the information is going to be continuously updated so that you get access to different pieces of information.
Okay, awesome.
For instance, the one some of the other piece of information that they want to provide in consumable format, so through like a story or through a snack, is some of the market information and real estate information. So if I click on the market, for instance, in this particular snack, you're seeing a video of David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, talking about blockchain technology and how tokenization could potentially benefit their customers. Making a different piece of information basically accessible in a consumable format here. There's other learning and investment and information portions to the application as well. At the bottom here, there's a bunch of different buttons. You see the house, and then to the right of it, the little credit card, and then the big gold circle in the middle that you click there. But if I click the one that looks like a graduation cap, this is actually a learning center. So within this learning center, you're going to get access again to some different pieces of information. For instance, if I click on macroeconomic indicators, it'll go through basic terminology for an investor to be able to learn about and to have access to in a very consumable, easy way. So the application obviously gives these opportunities and offers these opportunities, but it's also for the young investor, the new investor that is just getting started and wants to learn. And that's something that I'm very, very passionate about specifically, and am very happy was implemented as a part of the application. Going into the investments themselves. So the way that you find different investments is very simple. They appear on the main screen. This is the main screen of the application. The first one that we have here, this is a real estate investment opportunity, the NCC plus NL, and it'll explain within the investment what that means. But then there's other investment opportunities through different digital arts, such as Bored Ape Yacht Club, and some of these other ones that are all accessible today in the application. If I want to go to the real,
And
Sorry,
so,
go.
what payment for what payment types of payment can you use on this application?
Yeah. So I'm gonna show that, but basically
Okay.
the way that it works for that particular part is you are basically taking fiat currency, you're using it to buy USDC stablecoin through this application, and that stablecoin gives you the option to buy these different fractions.
Okay.
So so and in terms of putting your fiat into buying the stable coin is done in one of two ways. One, directly through the application, which will be the main source of doing this. But the second is for investors, at least at the beginning, specifically for investors that are looking to invest at least 5,000 euros into any of the opportunities. Metawealth is providing a VIP service for onboarding, and can accept different payments such as wire transfers and things like that to make it a little bit easier. And it's Metawealth knows that this is extremely important to offer and is necessary to offer clients because we are working with some specific investors that are looking at the specific real estate opportunity that would like to invest quite a bit of money, and that's not going to be just the credit card through the application. So it's through one of those two ways, but the main way is through the application. But if you click on the gold button in the middle there, you'll be able to, which I'll do right now. It takes you to the actual method to get the USDC stablecoin.
Oh, cool.
And you do it all, yeah, and you do it all through the application. It's very transparent in terms of the different fees and in terms of the rate, exchange rate for the fiat currency. Yeah, this is the main way that it's done. And this is all powered through a company called Transact.
Very cool.
Yeah, they power this operation here.
So this transfers everything to the stable Ethereum, the coin you're using, and then you can use from there just trade freely, basically.
Yeah, to buy the shares of the different investment opportunities. Yeah.
Cool.
And when you put your fiat currency into USDC or you transfer it in, you can here see on your profile here, which is the little credit card or wallet looking icon at the bottom there. You can see your entire asset portfolio, what you've invested. It'll also show the transaction history and the history of performance for your assets all through here. And through your profile here, if you click the minus button, you'll also be able to withdraw your funds as well through your portfolio here. So yeah, within your portfolio, you'll be able to see all of the transactions that you've done, the different assets that you hold, and some of the histories as well surrounding those.
Okay, awesome.
If I go into the actual opportunity itself, so clicking into NCC plus NL, this is where we have an active opportunity today. And so it's going to be super easy to show and explain how this concept works. But basically, within the application, we have this investment opportunity. If you click the more button here, it gives a lot of information about the specific opportunity, so that it's clear what's being offered in general. As you go further down, you can see the different the value of the entire portfolio of itself and the number of tokens that are associated with that. And then it also gives information about returns, things like that, the different asset class, whatnot. But the thing that was extremely important, as I mentioned, with the transparency and the control side, the other part of the transparency with this application and with these offers through Metawealth is Metawealth decided to put an investor document stack on every single opportunity. And what that includes is asset overview, in an independent valuation done by a third party, the investment projections, the overall market overview, sustainability reports on the real estate assets, the general white paper of the company, and the way that it works, and then also the energy rating. So you can get all the information about that asset and also about Metawealth very easily when you look at these investment opportunities, and they're extremely clear. The other thing in terms of the transparency and providing an opportunity that you can have some confidence in is that independent valuation. So Metawealth has for the first portfolio and will continue to do for every portfolio that's offered on the application, they're going to get an independent valuation done by one of the large firms, and in this case it was done by Colliers. For instance, they gave an independent valuation of the asset. So if you click on that button there, if I click on the independent valuation, it'll download the document into my phone. And if I go to my downloads, you have access to the full valuation report, which in this case, the third-party valuation report is about 45 pages long, which is a lot of information, but it definitely makes sure that you're covered and understand how this valuation was done, so that there's some legitimacy given to the pricing that's offered.
And then
Does that make
do you guys just follow the Colliers valuation as like that's the value, or are you trying to be
So with this first opportunity, and likely with the early stage opportunities as well, or some of the initial opportunities that will be offered on Metawealth, the founders and the founders of the business understand that it's extremely important for the investors to win, and to do extremely well, in order for the company, for the application to succeed. So Metawealth has basically negotiated with our property development company a really good purchase price on the specific assets that are offered right now. And so if I go to the investment projections, which will show how the investment is projected to return. Let me open that up. I'll explain where the pricing is right now. So
Will this be available on a website as well eventually, or is it always going to be app focused?
So this the service and the way that things work in Metawealth will always be done through an app. It's the easiest. I mean, everyone uses their phone, right? And in terms of trends, in terms of transactions and things like that, a lot of them are coming through mobile application at this time. So it's more, people have more access to their phone. So it just makes sense to be able to provide it through an application and give that accessibility whenever anybody wants.
I was just thinking for document purposes, it might be easier on like a bigger screen to like if you were trying to read that valuation, but you could email it to yourself, I guess, if you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of the price, so the first thing about the price is as I mentioned, Metawealth wants the investors to do extremely well and understands that's a big part of the success of the app. And so they negotiated a good price with InteRo Property Development, and have negotiated a 17.5% discount compared to the Colliers valuation. So basically the asset that's being offered right now on the application is 17.5% lower than what Colliers valuated the properties at, which is great for investors in that investment. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty good initial return for that. And then as you go through the remainder of the different opportunities for return on your investment, first there's the asset appreciation, which is conservatively done overall, based off that. So the first year they're expecting about 2.51% appreciation on the asset. And the net rental income, which is the yield, is 5.7% right now. So the first year return is estimated to be at just under 25% for the first year
The
with this
combination of
investment.
the two, the rental income combined with the appreciation.
Exactly. And the initial price discount,
Okay.
basically.
Oh, true. Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that opportunity looks like right now. Overall. And obviously, in terms of returns, when people are looking, there's a lot of different investments that you could do, high risk, more or low risk, more stable investments. For a long-term investor that's trying to build up their wealth, most people or a lot of people would put a significant portion of their investment into these lower risk investments, more stable investments,
Mhm.
because they're going to provide returns more stably
Yeah.
and consistently, and there isn't going to be major fluctuations in the valuations of your investment. So typically with those type of investments, you're either looking at real estate, or you're looking at stocks overall.
Mhm.
And speaking specifically about stocks, because one of the big questions I get is, why would I invest in this compared to investing in a stock? And also, yeah, but why would I invest in this and not stock? It's pretty simple. First, stock returns are not, on average, not what people expect. So there's different stocks that are higher speculation, potentially higher reward, but they come with much higher risk. And long term, they don't typically perform well in general. If you look at the indexes of the stock market in the US, for example, the S&P 500 has been the best performing stock index historically, and it averages about 7% per year on that return, while the other indexes have performed significantly worse, roughly about 2% per year.
Yeah.
So first off, the rate of return on this is 25% in 1 year, in an asset class that's, I would say, is more stable than the stock market for sure, which has a lot of speculation. So that's a big part of it. But then the second part of it is that part of your return is realized every month in dividends. A lot of stocks you can't get dividends. There are some that obviously provide dividends, but most stocks don't. So you're purely speculating on the appreciation of that stock price. In this investment, you're getting the appreciation and you're getting the obviously the return on cash through dividends and in the yield that you get from the rent overall.
Mhm. It's less affected by like CEO decisions too, and like
Yes,
the things you can
100%.
expect, right? Like
Yep.
it's affected by like the larger market opposed to like decisions made by some individual that was.
Exactly. Some tweet sent by some guy that
Yeah.
some CEO that he shouldn't have sent or something like that. Yeah. I mean, real
Or
estate
Buffett, he just
generally.
takes all his money out of your stock and it's worth nothing now because everyone just follows his decisions. So yeah, it's definitely more stable, definitely safer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Especially with things like housing. Like people will all you can't there'll never be enough housing. We'll always have a shortage. Like
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's part of that. And then in terms of the application,
but
in terms of
I'm sorry, one second before I lose that train of thought. So you're
yeah.
saying so the yields, how is that paid out?
So basically the yields, the rent is collected in cash by the SPV company,
Yeah,
not by Metawealth. I want to make that clear again, by the SPV company,
yeah.
that's managed by the trustees. From there, it's exchanged into USDC coins and on the Ethereum network. And then Ethereum is distributed to all the different investors as a portion of their rent. So the value of the rent will be distributed to them as Ethereum in the
In
application.
the app within the app.
Yes.
Oh, so
So
they can
you
reinvest this money that they're building up. They can keep like, oh, that's
exactly.
pretty cool.
Exactly. So they receive it in the application, and that disbursement is controlled by the smart contract that I mentioned earlier. So the smart contract basically sees the ledger of the blockchain, knows who owns what fraction of the investment, and your percentage of the investment total will be distributed of the investment total will be then calculated the percentage that you have of rent, and you earn and you receive that value of rent in your portfolio on the Metawealth app
Okay.
through and you can do, yeah, I mean, you have it all there, and as you mentioned, you can reinvest it back into more investments that are offered on the application, or you can take it out, or simply if you want, if you are bullish on crypto, you can simply hold it as well as a crypto investment.
Sure.
So there's really three things that you can do with it, which
And
gives you some options.
that's fair. Sorry, I'm going everywhere. Um, what happens? So like typical like fractional ownership would be like a condo corp. So like they have a reserve fund in case something goes wrong. There's money held in trust, and then they can like pivot. They can make decisions based on that. So like they could like
Yeah.
a building leak, there's a roof leak, whatever happens, they have money for that. What happens here? What if there's a roof leak? Like,
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. The first thing is that the yield that I showed in terms of rent, that's net yield. And what that means by net yield is that it's after an assumption of property management costs, the related taxes, and all costs associated with that investment other than your personal income taxes, which you have to report on your own.
okay,
So all other costs are factored into that. And there is a property management company that manages these properties and deals with the renters and ensures the success of that. But basically, with these interventions, there is a portion of the rent that's factored into that with this calculation on the net yield. But with extraneous or exceptional circumstances, the rental income would be used to remediate that problem if the property wasn't under warranty from the seller overall. So that the money basically would come through the rent in
there's
general.
no way that you'd have to like, they're gonna call you and be like, we need 5 grand, like from
No,
every, okay, cool.
no, there's no scenario for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the asset management company is a separate company that's been created by Metawealth as well. So Metawealth provides asset management over these properties. So they have an intrinsic connection with the properties beyond just being the asset manager. They're not
Okay.
just the asset manager that's collecting their fees and is comfortable if things aren't necessarily going well with the renters or the properties. No, they're heavily invested in ensuring that these assets are well maintained and that the renters are well maintained.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And then really the other thing that I should mention as well about this investment opportunity is the fact that none of the investment opportunities that will be offered on Metawealth will be leveraged. And that's extremely important in terms of the safety of the investment.
Mhm.
If they were, because they're unleveraged, they're the only thing that's affected relatively in terms of the asset, in terms of economic turmoil or recessions or things like that, is simply the price of the asset. But if it was leveraged, there could be a possibility that due to the economic circumstances, let's say, for instance, renters left the apartments or something like that, and there's less rental income for that reason. If there were economic pressures on a leveraged asset, there's a possibility that they wouldn't be able to pay either the credit payments on time, or yeah, that's the biggest risk, right? Is that they won't be able to pay the credit on time,
Mhm.
and there's a risk associated with that of losing the assets,
Yeah,
essentially.
for sure.
So with this investment opportunity, with investment opportunities in Metawealth, you're certain that the worst case is that the value of the property would go down, and you're certain that's the worst case, but at the same time, you're also certain that you're not going to lose everything, because real estate is never going straight to zero.
Yeah,
So the fact that it's a non-leveraged asset is something that's extremely important in terms of the safety of the investment
definitely,
overall.
definitely.
Yeah,
Should make people feel safer for sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. If it was heavily leveraged 150%, I'd be a little bit hesitant about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. It's one of the factors for sure.
No,
And
right.
also, yeah, but also to make it super easy for investors to understand what they should expect on their returns. There is an investment calculator which shows the different expectations that you should have overall.
Oh, that's
Um,
very cool. That's very cool.
yeah, so it's very simple to understand that from an investment standpoint. Um, yeah, but within the application, the other thing at the bottom here is that you have different news articles that'll be extremely accessible. You have customer support, which is very important, and the customer support is managed significantly, sufficiently, sorry, right now with manpower. So we're very happy about the way that we're going about that compared to some typical customer support that we've seen on other applications. So we have a plan for that. And then also at the top right, there's notifications and whatnot that are accessible as well.
Cool. And you
But
said
this
you
is
get notifications about like you've made this much today and stuff like that.
yeah, you get different notifications on the actual investments themselves, but also different updates and things like that will be pushed out to the users too.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, basically you get access to some information through that. But this is what the main application is. The design of the application is meant to be extremely user friendly, very consumable for early investors, a place where you are given access to great investment opportunities, but at the same time given access to information that can help you make smart investments.
Mhm.
Um, and it's in a very exciting opportunity and avenue for investors to look into. In terms of the market on this and the potential of tokenization, not only within Metawealth but within the industry in general, it's massive, right? I mean, you're potentially giving access to inaccessible real estate classes, real estate opportunities, global opportunities to everyone, uh,
Mhm.
which is just has never been the case in history up until this point.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing that's extremely exciting about it. That's the thing that can help resolve some of these affordability crises, and open up avenues for young people to get into the game, because right now it's hard. I mean, like, a personal example for myself, when I lived in Toronto, about 8 years ago now, this was the time I was looking to get into investment properties with my brother. And we went and we were able to talk about mortgages and all that type of stuff, and potentially get access, get approved. But in terms of the down payment, it would have been difficult, extremely difficult. But then also when I looked at the returns, I'm like, this is something that I'm leveraged on for the next 30 years. I have, I can get the money together for a down payment, but it's going to be tough. And in terms of the returns, I mean, I looked at the returns, and with the mortgage I had that I could have gotten, I would have had to continue to invest into the property each month. My rent wouldn't have covered the mortgage. So it's a tough situation for a lot of young people and people in general, in some of these markets, to get into the game. And this gets you into the game. And it gets you into opportunities that are typically not accessible.
Definitely. Definitely opens a lot of doors. I like that it's you've taken the
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now just because
okay.
finish that up.
Yeah, you're getting some messages anyways.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
The nice thing is it's like some people are a little bit thrown off by different cryptos and NFTs. So it's nice that it's like a tangible way to enter blockchain technology.
Yes.
It's like an asset you could physically fly to Romania
Yeah.
and touch this building. It exists in the world. It's not like theoretical value, it's real value. Like it makes money, it's profitable, like that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Very,
Very
very much so. And kind of touching on that just a little bit here. The application will be accepting cryptocurrency as well. It's not a function of the platform now, but it is in the plans, and that will be updated very quickly within the next period of time. So basically, if you are a crypto investor that's holding crypto, but you're not bullish on the market, but you still okay, let's say you're bullish, but you want to have something a little bit more stable in general compared to just a speculation of the appreciation of the crypto. You're able to take some of your crypto, invest it into something tangible that'll keep producing crypto for you. So that's the kind of interesting side of it for crypto investors as well, from my perspective.
Yeah, true. Hedge their bets a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you can grow your portfolio in a sustainable way, moving forward, which isn't just based off of speculation or yield generating products that are fraudulent, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
Love it.
And also, what's going on in the crypto market was a big factor in terms of the way the company was designed. Obviously, with the transparency and the control side. Metawealth really wanted to make sure that those were covered, that those were extremely clear, and the investors have the ability to really sleep at night knowing that their investments are being managed in the most efficient way and in a way that gives them a lot of control and transparency.
Awesome. Michael, thanks for sharing all that information with us, talking about Metawealth and the global markets in general. How can people learn more? How do people get the app? What does it look like?
Yeah, thanks for the chat as well. It's always a pleasure talking about real estate. As I mentioned, it's fun, it's exciting, and this next generation is going to be really exciting to see what happens. The application right now is accessible in Android, on Android, so through the Google Play Store, and it'll be available within the coming days on Apple as well through the App Store. So it'll be accessible on any phone. Essentially any phone relatively soon.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming on, and thanks everyone for watching.